I am putting it back. Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Yashodaranjan Yashodaranjan Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Prabhupada Prabhupada Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devi Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudinaye Nashta Prayeshvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevayam Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Hayeshtaki Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadhantikam Vande Guru Shri Vancha Kalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 29, verse 32.
Yeah. Yeah, they are good.
Arthagnat samasya chetham tata shreyan swakarma krit mukta sangas tato bhuyan adhokta dharmamatmanaham.
Arthagnat
samasya cheta tata shreyan swakarma krit. Mukta sangas tato bhuyan adhokta dharmamatmanaham.
Arthagnat samsaya cheta
Arthagnat samshaya cheta
tata shreyan swakarma
krit
mukta sangas tato bhuyan adogda dharmam atmana
adhokta dharmamatmanaham.
Arthagnat samsaya cheta
tata shreyan swakarma krit mukta sangas tato bhuyan adhokta dharmamatmanaham. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Better than the Brahmana who knows the purpose of the Vedas is he who can dissipate all doubts, and better than him is one who strictly follows the Brahminical principles. Better than him is one who is liberated from all material contamination, and better than him is a pure devotee who executes devotional service without exception of reward. Purport: Arthagnya Brahmana refers to one who has made a thorough analytical study of the absolute truth, and one who knows the absolute truth is realized in three different phases, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. If someone not only has this knowledge, but is able to clear all doubts if questioned about the absolute truth, he's considered better. Further, there may be a learned Brahmana, a Vaishnava, who can explain clearly and eradicate all doubts, but if he does not follow the Vaishnava principles, then he's not situated on a higher level. One must be able to clear all doubts and simultaneously be situated in the Brahminical characteristics. Such a person who knows the purpose of the Vedic injunctions, who can employ the principles laid down in the Vedic literatures, and who teaches his disciples in that way is called an Acharya. The position of an Acharya is that he executes devotional service with no desire for elevation to a higher position of life. The highest perfectional Brahmana is the Vaishnava, a Vaishnava who knows the science of the absolute truth but is not able to preach such knowledge to others, is described as being at the lower stage. One who not only understands the principles of the science of God but can also preach is in the second stage. One who not only can preach but also does see everything in the absolute truth, and the absolute truth in everything is in the highest class of the Vaishnavas. It is mentioned here that a Vaishnava is already a Brahmana. In fact, the highest stage of a Brahminical perfection is reached when one becomes a Vaishnava. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So there are 4 sessions in this Kartik month, which is devoted to different Vedanta commentaries, Vedanta philosophy explanations. So I'm not going to go more into this purport, but as the purport itself here is talking about the knowledge with reference to the absolute truth. So today is the first session in this series, which is devoted to Vishishta Advaita, or qualified non-dualism, which we are going to start this with a small biography of Sri Ramanujacharya. I will not be doing justice to the pastimes of Sri Ramanujacharya because of the time that we have. However, in order to understand Vishishtadvaita, some glimpse of the history of Sri Ramanujacharya would be very pertinent here. So I have a request here. As we understand, today's session will be on Vishishtadvaita. The next session, which will be on November 12th, not next Sunday, but the Sunday after that, will be on Tattvavada, Dvaita of Madhvacharya. And then we'll do other philosophies after that on November 19th. But my request here would be to not compare every occasion Vishishtadvaita with Achintya Bheda and our philosophy. Because what I have observed is every time when we compare in an individual session of Vishishtadvaita, we compare with our philosophy, it becomes very confusing and difficult to understand Vishishtadvaita. But the last session, I've created a comparative table which will compare all these, take different points and compare one by one and create a comparative analysis. Sri Ramanujacharya appeared in the year 1017 AD. His father's name was Asuri Keshava and his mother's name was Kantimati. And Sri Ramanujacharya was born after intense prayers by his parents to the temple of Sri Parthasarathi, which is located in the present Chennai. And his birth was in the place called Sri Perambudur, which is very close to the temple of Sri Adikeshava. His maternal uncle was a great Vaishnava saint who was a direct disciple of Sri Yamunacharya, and his name was Tirumalai Nambi. And the child was named as Ramanuja, Rama for Lord Rama, Anuja is younger brother, Rama plus Anuja is Ramanuja, and he being an expansion of Sri Lakshmana. And we will see the characteristics of Lakshmana and the service that Lakshmana did for Sri Ramachandra Prabhu throughout the pastimes of Sri Ramanuja. And he is also called as Ilai Alvar. In Tamil, Ilai is younger Alvar. Of the Alvars, he was the youngest of them, even though he's not counted among the Alvars. But and very close to Ramanujacharya was his maternal cousins, his mother's sister's son, and his name is Govinda. And we will see him also in the pastimes of Sri Ramanujacharya. When Ramanujacharya was a young boy, he became a student of a staunch Advaitin of the Mayavada school. And the name of this Advaitin was called as Yadava Prakasha. And this is sort of important here because there are going to be some verses where he conversed with Yadava Prakasha. But even though he took Yadava Prakasha as his teacher, he accepted as his mentor and a guru, Sri Vaishnava saint, and his name was Sri Tirukachi Nambi. And he was in this Kachi is the Tamil equivalent of Kanchi. And so Kanchi translates to Kachi. And so his name was Tirukachi. Basically, it means Kanchi. Ramanuja accepted him as mentor, and he learned the scriptures from this Tirukachi Nambi, who himself was a disciple of Sri Yamunacharya. So they all descend somehow or the other from Sri Yamunacharya. And from him, Ramanujacharya also learned the various verses of the Alvars called as the Divya Prabandhams, and also the meaning of the whatever is conveyed through the disciplic succession of the Sri Sampradaya. But when he was in the class of Sri Yadava Prakasha, there were distinctly some disagreements with his teacher. The first disagreement, I'm going to point just two main disagreements, which are very well known in the among the verse here. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. That is the verse in the Taittiriya Upanishad. And Yadava Prakasha was giving the definition of this Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma, that this Brahman, which is attributeless in the Kevala Advaita. But then Taittiriya Upanishad says Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. So the Mayavada school will translate that this Brahman itself is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. That means they are not attributes, but that is the definition of Brahman. That is why Brahman is attributeless, because what is Brahman? Brahman itself means it is eternal knowledge and truth. That is the absolute truth. That is the definition of Brahman. But Ramanujacharya disagreed with Yadava Prakasha, and he said this is not the definition of Brahman, but they are merely attributes of Brahman. That is, they are just qualities of Brahman. It is not that is Brahman, that Satyam is Brahman and Jnanam is Brahman, Anantam is Brahman. That is not the thing, but it is just attributes of the Brahman. In fact, Brahman has infinite auspicious qualities, of which these are some of the primary attributes. And so this is something like saying that these are the qualities of this Prabhu, but the qualities themselves are that Prabhu. So the Mayavada school saying the qualities and the Brahman are identical, but Ramanujacharya is saying that they are just merely qualities of that Brahman. So this was the first disagreement with Yadava Prakasha. The second disagreement was a very famous verse from the Chandogya Upanishad. And this was when this verse was being recited in the class and explained by his students. Ramanujacharya was giving a oil massage to his teacher. And as the teacher was giving the explanation, tears fell from his eyes because of the kind of explanation. And the tears were so hot that it just burned the teacher's body. And this is the verse here. Tasya yatha Kapyasam Pundarikam Eva Makshini. So the Upanishad, this Pundarikam Eva Makshini. Akshini is the ice, Pundarikam lotus flower. The Upanishad is colorfully comparing the eyes of the Supreme Lord to the lotus flower. Okay, so we can Kapyasam Pundarikam. So what it says here, the law, Yadava Prakasha translated this as this Kapyasam Pundarikam, as the Lord has, instead of the Lord has lotus-like eyes, similar to the rear of a monkey. That is the translation Yadava Prakasha gave. And Ramanujacharya replied that this Kapyasam comes from the conjugation of the Sanskrit word kapi, and then kam pibati. Kapi comes from kam pibati, which means the sun. So when the sun falls on this lotus, the lotus blooms. Okay, so that's the translation of this verse, the conjugation of the Sanskrit word. The Upanishad would not use some crude standard for comparing with some monkeys behind. So the meaning is he has eyes beautiful like the lotus that has just begun to bloom under the influence of the sun. Kam pibati. So under the influence of the sun, it is beginning to bloom. And the teacher did not like it. And then there were some plots to the Ramanujacharya was becoming a disturbance to the school. So they planned a trip to Ganga and there to finish Sri Ramanujacharya. On the plea of worshipping the sacred river Ganga, Yadava Prakasha and his disciples made arrangements for a pilgrimage to Varanasi. And as Ramanujacharya would to join him, Ramanujacharya did not suspect anything. He was as intelligent and knowledgeable as he was innocent as well. And unsuspecting of this treacherous plan, Ramanuja accepted the invitation. But then once they went there, his cousin Govinda came to know about the plot. And then he told Ramanujacharya, he took him to a secluded place and told Ramanujacharya of the imminent danger. And then Ramanujacharya, he told him to escape from the place. And then Govinda returned to the camp. And then he said that Ramanuja went for looking for some wild berries, and then some tiger pounced on him and Ramanuja was taken away. And then Yadava Prakasha was very happy with this, because whatever they wanted to do, a tiger did it. So well and good. But Ramanujacharya got lost in the forest there in the Vindhyas. At that time, the deities of Kanchi, called as Sri Varadaraja, someone who gives the boons, and the Lakshmi Devi there is called Perundevi. They both came in the in disguise, and then they took Ramanujacharya back from the forest and placed him back in Kanchi. And when later, the Yamunacharyas had some intimate disciples, and one of them, his name was Periyanambi. This Periyanambi came as a messenger of Sri Yamunacharya to take Ramanuja to Srirangam to meet Yamunacharya. But by the time he reached Yamunacharya, Yamunacharya had left this material world, with 3 fingers extended. You can see that in this picture, there are 3 fingers extended with, and then Sri Ramanujacharya made 3 promises. And as he made the 3 promises, the 3 fingers went back to its resting position. The first promise that he made was that he will write a commentary for the Brahma Sutra, the Vedanta Sutra, which contains 4 chapters. And that Vedanta Sutra commentary is called as Sri Bhashya, which we will elaborate today as we explain the Sri Bhashya will form the basis of today's session on Vishishtadvaita. And then the second one, he promised to pay off the debt to Sri Parashara Muni, who is the father of Sri Vyasadeva, and who's also the author of Vishnu Purana, and to Sri Veda Vyasa, the author of the Vedanta Sutra and the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then he promised to make the most renowned of the Arvars, his name was called Nammarvar, and his fame into eternity. The 3 folded fingers of Yamunacharya, who is also called Alavanda, straightened out, and after Sri Ramanujacharya made this promise. And then Periyanambi then went back to Kanchi to be with Ramanujacharya. And when after all this, Periyanambi went to Kanchi, and then Ramanujacharya was also coming back to Srirangam. They met at a place called Sri Madurantakam, where the initiation ceremony for Ramanujacharya happened. So Periyanambi initiated Ramanujacharya and then gave the insignia of the disc and the conch shell to him. So, and both of them went together to Kanchipuram to perform the sacred ceremony in front of Lord Varadaraja. So the initiation of Sri Ramanujacharya was concluded. And then at that time, Yadava Prakasha understood the greatness of Sri Ramanujacharya, fell at his feet and became his disciple. And Ramanujacharya blessed him and gave him the name Govinda Jiyer. And Yadava Prakasha then became a true Vaishnava devotee. After reaching Srirangam, Ramanujacharya sent a word to his maternal uncle. We saw that he was the one who gave his name when he was young, Tirumalai Nambi. And then he requested him to go to Kalahasti, and that's the temple in the present-day Andhra Pradesh, to bring his cousin Govinda. Govinda, because this is the danger of being in contact with Mayavada philosophers, that even there is always a danger to, and therefore to keep some distance, even though Govinda was the maternal cousin of Ramanujacharya, and he even saved him when he went to North India, but because of the influence of the Mayavadis, he also became one. And then he went to Kalahasti and then became one of them completely. And then the maternal uncle Tirumala Nambi went to Kalahasti and practically have to lift him from there and bring him back to Srirangam. And then he did come back, and then that was the return back to the Vaishnava fold. And then he was also called as Embar, that was his name, and then he became a disciple of Ramanujacharya. So Ramanujacharya was so merciful that he did not let go just because his cousin just went into the Mayavada fold. He waited for the moment and then sent a messenger and brought him back to the Vaishnava fold. This is my last slide on his history, I think, or maybe one more slide. And then Sri Ramanujacharya, what he did, he was then asked by the disciples of Yamunacharya to go to a place called as Tirugoshtiyur. This Tirugoshtiyur is a temple town near the present day Madurai. And there is a huge, very beautiful deity of the Lord called as Sri Saumya Narayana. And this Periyanambi who initiated Ramanujacharya told him to go to this place called Tirugoshtiyur. There is a learned scholar there who will give him the mantra initiation, and his name was called Tirugoshtiyur Nambi. And Ramanujacharya attempted a number of times to go. He made 18 attempts to go get the mantra from this saint called as Tirugoshtiyur Nambi, who would not give the mantra to him. Finally, after 18 times, he said, okay, I will give you, but you need to make a promise that you would not tell this mantra to anyone, because listening to this mantra, people will go directly to Vaikuntha. And if Ramanujacharya disobeyed him, he would go to hell. But then what Ramanujacharya did, he said, fine, give me the mantra. And then he went to the nearby temple, the Tirugoshtiyur Nambi. It had huge walls, ramparts, and he went to the highest peak there in the temple. And then he said, whoever is interested, please come and I'll give you this divine mantra. And then he gave that mantra to them called as Om Namo Narayana. And then Tirugoshtiyur Nambi, he came to know about this and he became very angry. He rushed to Ramanujacharya and inquired, why is it that he broke his promise immediately? Ramanujacharya said, because by telling this mantra of Narayana, if he would go to hell, but the entire humanity would go to Vaikuntha, he would be okay with it. Tirugoshtiyur Nambi was very happy with Ramanujacharya. He embraced him, and then he made his own son, who was called as Saumya Narayana, after the deity of that particular town, and he became Ramanujacharya's disciple. And then all the devotees started congregating in Srirangam, and all the disciples of Yamunacharya in turn accepted Ramanujacharya himself as the leader of the disciplic succession. So the disciplic succession is pretty much written as Yamunacharya, then Ramanujacharya, and all of them accepted him as the leader. And these are some of the prime disciples of Ramanujacharya, and these were all and every one of them passed the message from Yamunacharya back to Ramanujacharya, and in turn accepted Ramanujacharya as their leader. And one was Tirukachi Nambi, Periyanambi, Tirugoshtiyur Nambi, Tirumalai Nambi, Tiruvaranga Nambi. They all in turn accepted Ramanujacharya as the leader of the Sri Sampradaya. And then Ramanujacharya's activities in this world are very elaborate. He lived here for 120 years, and he fulfilled all the three wishes of Sri Yamunacharya. There were many more attempts of his life by the kingdoms at the time were not very favorable as well. And so he had to go, he brought the Srirangam temple management under his control. So temple management rules, so many things were set by Sri Ramanujacharya. He just didn't take anything lightly. And then he established Vaishnavism throughout India. And then he went to Karnataka for 20 years, again, and because of another life attempt that was made on him. And there he spread Vaishnavism further. There was a Chora king in near the Tanjore district who again inflicted harm onto Sri Ramanujacharya. And then in Karnataka, there was a great spread of Vaishnavism because of this. So, and to the right here, this picture here is the actual body of Sri Ramanujacharya preserved with various ingredients, and is a temple within the Srirangam premise. This is the actual body. This is Sri Ramanujacharya's body. They did not bury or cremate or anything. They preserved the body, and it is still today, it is there in the Srirangam temple. So these are the major works of Sri Ramanujacharya, the commentary of the Vedanta Sutra, for which he is so well known, called as the Sri Bhashya, just like how we have our Govinda Bhashya. And then there is Vedartha Sangraha, which is expounding the philosophy of the Upanishads. And then the Vedanta Sara and the Vedanta Deepa. And then the Nitya Grantha. These are all the various daily ritual practices. And then there is a Bhagavad Gita Bhashya. All the major commentators, they wrote a commentary for the Bhagavad Gita. And many of these things were later, about after 300 years, being taught to Gopala Bhatta Goswami, who then actually narrates all the details of this Sri Bhashya. He shares that with Sri Jiva Goswami. And when Sri Jiva Goswami is writing his Tattva in his Shat Sandarbha, he notes, he gives a lot of credit to that Goswami who came from the South India, Gopala Bhatta Goswami. And from there, he incorporates a lot of those things of Sri Ramanujacharya in the Shat Sandarbha. We can see that throughout. So now let's start with the philosophical aspects of this session, the Vishishtadvaita of Sri Ramanujacharya. If we see the Vedas, which in turn comprises of 4 segments called as the Brahmanas, Aryankas, Upanishads, and the Samhitas. So there are 1,000 and odd Brahmanas, 1,000 and odd Aryankas, Samhitas, and 1,000 and odd Upanishads, of which there are a lot of them are not visible to our eyes right now. There are about 108 major Upanishads, for instance, and we know some Samhitas, like Brahma Samhita itself is one of the Samhitas. So like this, and there are Brahmanas, Aryankas, and so on. And out of those 108, Shankaracharya said about 10 of them were most important, and he wrote commentaries only for 10 of them. But we have commentaries for a lot more than those 10. But the Vedas, if you see the various Upanishads, Brahmanas, Aryankas, whatever, Samhitas, we can see that some of the verses, they completely talk about absolute difference between the living entities and God. And these are called as Bheda Shruti. That is, the Shruti, they talk about absolute difference, that there is no kind of similarity here between the Jiva soul and Ishvara. And example, Khata Upanishad 2.2.13, Prabhupada frequently cites Nityo, Nityanam, Chetanas, Chetananam. So this is a Bheda Shruti, that there is an absolute difference between the individual living entity and the God. And Madhvacharya, which we will do on November 12th, that is the Diwali day, is Madhvacharya thing that we will do Dvaita, Tattvavada philosophy on that day. That is Bheda Shruti. And then, but the Vedas, it would be so easy for people to comprehend if every verse was just Bheda Shruti. But the Vedas don't do that. There are another set of verses which are called as Abheda Shruti. It is because the Vedas also say, like there are verses here called as Aham Brahmasmi, Sarvam Kalavidam Brahma. That means all there exists is Brahman. These are all called Abheda Shruti. This is famous verse, Chandogya Upanishad 3.14.1, Sarvam Kalavidam Brahma. That all there exists is just Brahman. This is called Abheda Shruti. And Shankaracharya predominantly focused only on the Abheda Shruti and then interpreted all other verses based on this Abheda Shruti. So if there is a Bheda Shruti, that is in turn interpreted based on the Abheda Shruti. The Abheda Shruti is taken as the prime correct thing. And in order to do that, they also had to add the Mayavada on top of it, because the Abheda Shruti by themselves were not explainable. But Ramanujacharya focused on a new set of shlokas in the Vedas called as the Ghataka Shruti. Ghataka Shruti means bridge shlokas. These are those shlokas that are bridging the Bheda and Abheda. So he gave prime importance to the Ghataka Shruti in order to bring the Bheda and Abheda together into an organic unity. And this is an example in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 3.7.23, which forms the basis for the Sri Bhashya of the Ramanujacharya. This is the verse, Atmani Tishtan Atmano Antaro Yam Atma. Atma na Veda Yasya Atma Shariram. So if you see this verse here, Atma na Veda Yasya Atma Shariram. Shariram is body. So we're going to just use the word Shariram for now. And then we will develop this. We will develop this and understand what this concept of Shariram and Atma deals with in Vishishtadvaita. For now, I will let it go, but then I have created some pictorial diagrams to explain this verse in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad and how Ramanujacharya takes that and explains that in the Sri Bhashya. So the summary of this slide is Madhvacharya focused on the Bheda Shruti and interpreted all the other verses based on the predominance of the Bheda Shruti. So it is very theistic. All Bheda Shruti, only Bheda Shruti means it's very theistic. And then Abheda Shruti, that means all the verses are explained. That is, Shankaracharya did that with Abheda as the prime. That will not lead to theism, because if there is Abheda alone means there won't be theism. And then Ramanujacharya focused on the bridge shlokas called as the Ghataka Shruti. So this is an example of the Ghataka Shruti from the Bhagavad Gita. Just as I put how there was a Ghataka Shruti in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the Bhagavad Gita 7.7 says, Mai Sarvamidam Protam Sutre Manighana Ida. This is a verse of a bridge shloka between Bheda and Abheda. So everything rests upon me is Krishna here, as pearls are strung on a thread. So this verse we will see forms the basis for Vishishtadvaita. As an integral, that the living entities and the matter form integral parts of God or Brahman. We'll explain that here, okay? That everything rests upon me. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to take this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad verse, this Bhagavad Gita verse, and then we will build it further of how the Vishishtadvaita builds here.
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu.
How this will be like, reconciling Advaita and Vishishtadvaita?
So here is a verse which talks about two things. The me here refers to Krishna, the Ishvara. The pearls refer to the Jiva souls, matter, everything. So here is a bridge, the connection between the Jiva souls and God. So this is a bridge shloka. So now we'll come to the definition of Vishishtadvaita. Vishishta comes from the word Visheshena, plus. But what is qualified means qualities. Vishishta, Vishesh, qualities. What is qualified is not the Advaita, even though it is called as Vishishta Advaita, but it is not the Advaita that is qualified, but it is the Brahman that is qualified. So that is a misunderstanding here. Vishishtadvaita, we cannot just translate that and just say it is called as qualified non-dualism. It is not the Advaita that is qualified. I'm going to soon show you here how it is the Brahman that is qualified, and therefore it is called as but the philosophy is called as Vishishtadvaita. Even I have labeled the title of this seminar as qualified non-dualism, because that is the actual translation of this word Vishishta plus Advaita. But Vishishtadvaita does not mean qualified non-dualism. It just means the Brahman is qualified, and we'll explain that. This slide explains how Ramanujacharya in his Sri Bhashya, right in the first verse, when he explains the first verse of the Vedanta Sutra, Janmadhyasya, that the same verse as the Srimad Bhagavatam is there in the Vedanta Sutra. But then if you see here, how he gives the relationship. So in this seminar series, we will see that there are three entities which are explained. One is the Jiva soul, one is Ishvara, God, and the third is matter, Jada. So the Vishishtadvaita equivalence for these words, okay? So the Sanskrit word they will use throughout the Sri Sampradaya here. For Jiva soul, they call it as Chit. And for matter, Jada, they call it as Ajit. And for God, they will call it as Ishvara. So Chit, Ajit, Ishvara. I'm just using the Sri Vaishnava parlance for today's seminar. So And both, there are two things here. One is that the Jiva soul and that is Chit and Achit, both are dependent on Ishvara. But what is Ghataka Shruti? What is bridging? That he says that all these three are intertwined. The Chit, Ishvara and Achit, they are all intertwined to form one organic whole. That is the basis for Vishishtadvaita. The Chit, matter, and Achit. That is matter is Achit and Chit, Jiva soul. They all form structural part and parcel of the Ishvara, of the Brahman. Okay, so all these three together form an organic whole: Chit, Ishvara, and Achit. The only difference is that Chit and Achit are dependent on Ishvara. And how can we see that? From that verse of Bhagavad Gita, where pearls are strung on the body of Krishna. So in the same way, the Chit and Achit are strung on the as a pearl necklace on the body of the Lord.
So Chitta Chit of Ishvara is Brahman.
Is Brahman. And I'll explain that a little more so. So what is this Ishvara? This Ishvara refers to the term used by in the Sri Bhashya is called Paravasudeva. That's the name of this Ishvara. Paravasudeva. Paravasudeva is the name of this Ishvara. And this Ishvara has primary attributes which are unchanging and eternal. What are some of the examples, the primary attributes of this Paravasudeva? He has a conch shell. He has a disc. He is bluish black or blue in complexion. Okay, and then he has the Kaustuba gem. He has so these are all. He has a lotus flower. He has a club. These are all his primary attributes, which are unchangeable, and it is always there. Now, Ramanujacharya doesn't stop there. Then he says he also has secondary attributes. And what are those secondary attributes? Those secondary attributes, okay, are the Jiva souls and matter. This is Chit, this is Achit. These are the secondary attributes, Vishesha. So Visheshya, this is where the Vishishtadvaita is coming from. Visheshya is the predominant. The predominant here is the Paravasudeva or Narayana. And then he has Visheshena, means the attribute. These are secondary attributes. And what are the secondary attributes? The Jiva souls and matter. And these Visheshena, they are the secondary, these are the subordinate elements. Okay, the primary elements, the primary attributes are, he has a disc, he has a gada, he has a Kaustuba gem. These are his primary attributes, unchangeable, eternal. But he also has secondary attributes, which are subordinate attributes. Okay, and here also the predominant is, understand here, as we understand Vishishtadvaita. And this Visheshya, which is Paravasudeva, and with all his primary attributes and all the secondary attributes, which is both Jiva, Chit and Achit, together forms a complete whole. And that complete whole is called Brahman. So, Ramanujacharya says here that these qualities are not just same, they are merely qualities of Brahman. They themselves do not become the Brahman. The example which he gives in the Sri Bhashya is that, like, let's say there is a blue lotus. The blueness of the lotus itself is not lotus. The blueness forms part of that complete whole. In the same way, all these qualities, they form part of the Brahman, the attributes of the Ishvara in that Brahman, but not, they themselves are not Brahman. So in order to understand this, there are three ways to understand this knowledge. One is called Pratyaksha, and which is, and Ramanujacharya says that this is the foundation of knowledge. So here, this Pratyaksha is accepted as the foundation of knowledge. And then Anumana is reasoning based on induction. If it is true for n equal to 1, n equal to 2, n equal to k, it's true for n equal to k plus 1. So by induction, we can, that also is accepted as a premise for knowledge, as long as the Pratyaksha and Anumana do not contradict Shabda. So the Shabda is the basis and the revealed knowledge, which literally means sound, and it is spoken or written by a trustworthy person. And Shruti is the consummation of all knowledge. So all three are accepted as long as Pratyaksha and Anumana do not contradict the Shabda. So an example of that is given here in the form of a rope and a snake. The reality of experience. So Ramanujacharya says that no experience can be dismissed as non-existent, because in the Sri Sampradaya, they're accepting all three: Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Shabda. As long as the Pratyaksha and Anumana, of course, don't contradict the Shabda, because everybody can come and say, oh, I feel something, you feel something. Because if it is contradicting Shabda, then it is, that experience is considered, there is ignorance in it. So, but he says that there is no experience can be dismissed as non-existent. There is a reason for the experience. Okay, so he says this rope snake analogy, in the Mayavada school, that's where they cited this. Shankaracharya first cited this in his commentary, that we think that this world is, let's say that there is a rope, sometimes it's mistaken for a snake. So in the same way, we are mistaking this world for the snake, but there is no snake actually, right? That is so that means that this world is an illusion and the world doesn't exist, right? That is the Kevala Dvaita Shankaracharya's Bhashya. But Ramanujacharya says that if the rope is mistaken for a snake, this is because the rope looks like a snake. So there is a reason behind why the rope is being mistaken for the snake. On contrast, if you take this pillar in this temple, that pillar is not, nobody mistakes that for a snake. So only a rope is being mistaken for a snake, but not this pillar. That means that there is some connection between the rope and the snake. So he says that the cause of the illusion is real and the effect of that illusion is also real. So that means there is no, the cause of I shouldn't use the word experience here because I'm doing the Sri Bhashya here. The cause of the experience is real and the effect of the experience also is real. There is a reason why that somebody is mistaking that rope for a snake. So, and why are they mistaking that? Because Ramanujacharya says there is no illusion and all. It is because they're having fragmentary knowledge. They're having broken knowledge. They have a knowledge of a small part, and that because of that little knowledge, they're experiencing it in a certain way. And what is the reason for that fragmentary knowledge? It is because of avidya. There is ignorance. That avidya is the cause for this fragmentary knowledge. That means that we can say that in the dream, we see so many experiences in the dream. Let's say a tiger coming and chasing us or something. But even those, Ramanujacharya says, is some kind of a psychic experience. That even that there is some reality in it. There is some suffering or some enjoyment or some pleasure, even in the dream, that there is some reality even in that experience. That the dream itself is a creation of God. That there is this entire concept of illusion doesn't exist in Vishishtadvaita. Neither is the world an illusion, nor is our experience as illusion, nor is our so-called illusory seeing of a mirage in the desert, or a pillar for a robber, or for a rope for a snake. These are all various analogies used in the Upanishads. So I use the same analogies. None of these are illusory. And even a dream, there is some real experience. So it is really a philosophy where there is a reality. And again, my request here is to not compare this with Achintya Bheda and our philosophy for now, because we'll definitely confuse. But I will do the comparison myself in the last of this seminar series. So this is, I'm quoting two or more things. These are all some verses from the Alvars. The most renowned, most celebrated of those Alvars was called as Nam Alvar. And these are actually verses. The first verse which was found by Yamunacharya's grandfather. His name was called Nadamuni, and he found this. This is the first verse he found in a temple in Kumbakonam, which is about an hour or two from the Sri Rangam temple. And the verse goes as Ara Amude Adiyen Avi Agame Tittipai Tira Vinegal Tira Yennai Andai Tirukudandai. Tirukudandai is the name of the place. Urar Unakatpattum Adiyen Hinnam Udalveno. It's just saying that everybody is that I am working. I have already surrendered unto the personality of Godhead. Do I still need to work? Udalveno means, do I still need to work? I've completely surrendered unto your lotus feet. Why am I still working? What am I? And Tira Benaigal means all this karma phal, which is going after birth after birth, it is never going to end. Tira Benaigal means the karmic reactions. Tira Ennai, but it can come to an end because of the grace of that personality of Godhead. To this deity of this. So here is the release from bondage. So this is the other Vishishtadvaita principle here, that the release of bondage is possible only by the mercy of the Godhead, because otherwise the karmic reactions are never ending. It has been going on life after life. And these two are examples of that. A few generations after Ramanujacharya, there was this saint called as Pillai Lokacharya, who further expounded the Vishishtadvaita of Ramanujacharya. And he classified the Sri Bhashya into 5 different parts. And what are the 5 different parts he created was the nature of the soul called as Swarupa, and then Paraswarupa, which is the nature of God, and then Purushartha, which is the nature of goal. And then the 4th one is the nature, Paya, Upaya. It's actually Upaya Swarupa. And then Virodhi Swarupa. What is all obstructing these? So when he gave 5 divisions of this, and he formed, this is called as Artha Panchakam, 5 things. And this is considered as an explanation of the Sri Bhashya of Sri Ramanujacharya. And what are these 5? One is the soul. These are the 5 characteristics of the 5 ways, 5 different kinds of souls. One is Nitya. This means they are ever free, which is equivalent to our Nitya Mukta. And then, so Muktas, so they are free. They're freed, means somebody who is in this material world, but then they get freed and then attain liberation. And then there is Bhadda, which means bound soul. And then Kevala, these are the isolated soul. This is the isolated soul. This is equivalent to our Sayujya Mukti. And then you have Mumukshu. These are seekers of liberation. So these are the 5 kinds of soul. So 5 divisions of souls. And then five aspects of nature of God. What are they? Number 1, he is Para. He is supreme. Number 2, the Vyuha. He has many emanations. We have Aniruddha, Sankarshna, Pradyumna, Vasudeva, from that Para Vasudeva. So those are the Chatur Vyuha. And then Vibhava, various incarnations. And then Antaryami, who is the indweller in every living entity. And then Archa, which is the manifestation as deities. So these are the 5 different manifestations of God. And then you have Purushartha, Swarupa, 5 goals. What are the 5 goals? Dharma, which is religiosity. Artha, economic development. Kama, sense gratification. Moksha, which is Ramanujacharya's thing, they classify as enjoyment with, that is Vaikuntha Moksha. And then there is Kaivalya, which is enjoyment of the soul. Kaivalya liberation is separate. And then you have Para, the Upaya Swarupa. This is what are the means. One is Karma Yoga, which is the path of action. Jnana Yoga, path of knowledge. Bhakti, path of devotion. Everything is accepted in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. Prapatti, which is the path of surrender. And then Acharya Abhima, devotion to Acharya by itself can give liberation. Example of that was Nammalvar's disciple, who was called as what was his name? Madhura Kavi Alvar. He composed a set of verses, and none of those verses was on Godhead. It was on his spiritual master Nammalvar, and that alone liberated him. So you don't even need to worship the Lord. You just worship your spiritual master, and that alone can liberate you. That is the fifth method of liberation. So this is the upaya, and then devotion to your acharya. And what is all opposing all these things? This upaya, one is called as Swarupa Suddhi. I don't like this translation here, so I rewrote the translation. Swarupa Virodhi means you are considering yourself to be independent of God. That is called Swarupa. Your nature is to be servant of God. As soon as you deny that nature, you become, it is called Swarupa Virodhi. Your natural position, according to Ramanujacharya, is that you're an eternal servant of this Paravasudeva. But then as soon as you are going to become an I don't like the word anti-soul, but it just means you're independent of God. You think yourself to be independent of God. Then Paratattva Virodhi, that this is an atheist, one who thinks themselves to be opposing, the existence of Godhead. This is the second problem in devotional, in your progress towards spiritual progress. The third one is Purushartha Virodhi, that you don't like any of these things. You don't want religiosity, you don't want economic development, you don't want sense gratification, Kaivalya, Moksha, nothing. So this is Purushartha Virodhi. And then Upaya Virodhi, that you don't like any of these means also. You don't like Karma Yoga, you don't like Jnana Yoga, you don't like Bhakti Yoga, you don't like anything. So you're just performing something for the sake of, that's like behavior of a Grahamedi, right? So, and then there is, last one is Prapatti Virodha, that is, you don't like the fruit as well. Okay, so these are all various obstructions. This is the Pillai Lokacharya's, his own explanation for the Vishishtadvaita. And before I go into the finest of the metaphysics of Vishishtadvaita, I'm going to show you some diagrams of Vishishtadvaita metaphysics very soon. But I just want to take two slides here of what they called as pasurams, which belong to what are called as 4,000 such pasurams are there in what are called as the Divya Prabandham. This is the last set of verses, I'm not citing everything, called as composed by Nammalvar, and it shows the path, what happens to a soul after when they go towards Vaikuntha. So there are three kinds of destinations for soul. One is they're just going to be rotating in this material cosmos. The second set of souls are going to go to lower planetary systems. The third set of souls are going to higher planetary systems, Svargaloka. But then there is a fourth set of souls who are going to Vaikuntha. And here is, if somebody is going to Vaikuntha, how is their experience going to be for going back to Godhead? So back to Godhead experience, there are 11 such verses. And this is a famous, so it is called, I'm going to quickly read this. It'll take 2 minutes. சூழ் விசும் பனிமுகில் தூரியம் முழக்கின ஆழ்கடல் அலைத்திரை கையெடுத்து ஆடின ஏழ் புழிலும் பலம் ஏந்தியே எனப்பன் வாழ்புகழ் நாரணன் தமரை கண்டு உகந்தே. That means like the soul is about to leave this world and going to go back to Godhead. What is happening? The clouds in the sky, they are all playing various things. The waves in the ocean, they clap and dance. The 7 continents, they're translating as continents is not the correct thing. It is the 7 worlds, which is per Bhagavatam, not these continents, Asia, America, and all. This is like the Jambudvipa, Plakshadvipa, and so on. Those 7, they stood with gifts to see the devotee of eternally praised Narayana homebound. Okay, so they are homebound, they are going back to Godhead. எதிரெதிர் இமையவர் இருப்பிடம் வகுத்தனர் கதிரவர் அவரவர் கைநிறை காட்டினர் அதிகுரல் முரசங்கள் அலைக்கடல் முழக்கொத்த மதுவிழி துழாய்மொழி மாதவன் தமர்க்கே. So you can see the names of Krishna appearing everywhere. Here he's called Narayana, here he's called Madhava. And then so here he says what happens is when the soul is leaving this earth, okay, material world, all the sun, the moon, the stars, they all form lights along a freeway. There is a freeway that is formed with lights on all sides. And who is all the luminaries in the sky? They all form this path. And so the moon, the sun, they all form a lighted path. And then in honor of the nectar Tulasi, Lord Madhava's devotee. And then this devotee is progressing towards Vaikuntha. மடந்தையர் வழுத்தலும் மருதரும் வசுக்களும் தொடர்ந்தெங்கும் தோத்திரம் சொல்லினர் தொழுக்கடல் கிடந்தையன் கேசவன் கிளரொளி மணிமுடி குடந்தையன் கோவலன் குடியடி ஆர்கே. So the Maruts, the Vasus, they're all joining. They're all coming and lining up. In the soul is going back to Godhead. So then you have the Maruts coming, the Vasus coming, all the people from Indraloka, they're all coming and they're all standing there and offering prayers to this devotee who is going back to Godhead. And where is this person? And then the person is moving towards the ocean, reclining Keshava. So there you have the milk ocean and he's passing through that. And the Keshava is reclining that. So that word Keshava is here. Kidandayan Keshavan, Keshava. And then, and they're all moving. And then where is he moving? Towards the radiant crown Gopala. And the Lord of that place, the temple where he's describing. Kudiyadiyarivar Govindan Tanakendru. This is the next name of Krishna here as Govinda. Govindan Tanakendru Mudiyudai Vanavar Murai Edirkulla Kudiyani Nedumadil Kopuram Kuruginar Padivudai Madhavan Vaikundam Pugave. This is another name of Krishna here as Madhava. So this soul is now, where is he entering? He is entering into Vaikunta. So the Tamil equivalent of the Vaikunta is Vaikundam. Gods in rows, they're all forming, they're on either sides, welcoming this servant who is going to go see Govinda face to face. And then through the high walls of the festooned, there are all these walls, they're all standing there. And there is the image of the Madhava in Vaikunta. And then this soul is going to go back to Vaikunta. And then this is the last two verses I'm just going to say here. Vaikundam Pugudalum Vasalil Vanavar, Vaikundam Tamaremer, Yamadiram Pugudendru, Vaikundanta Amararum, Munivarum Viyantanar, Vaikundam Pugavadam, Annavar Vidhi. This is the entrance into Vaikunta. The soul is going back, and as he's entering, all the residents of Vaikunta, they're all coming and looking at this, the joy, at this devotee who's coming back. Every time a devotee comes back to Godhead, this is what happens in Vaikunta according to Nammarvar. He says, all of them are filled with joy. They all come and welcome him into this Vaikunta. And he said, this is every man's birthright. We have our birthright is to go back to Godhead. This is the last verse. Bandavar Edirkolla Mamani Mandapathu Andamil Perinba Tadiyarodu Hirendamai Kondanar Poyil Kurugur Sadagopan Sol Sandangal Ayirathu Baivalar Munivare. So as soon as the devotee enters into the Vaikunta, there the Lord is standing in a jewel mandapa, and with everlasting joy, he is going and entering into the service of the Godhead. So this is about this path in the Sri Vaishnava thing is called Archiradi Marga. So this is my last but one slide. This picture I created to explain Vishishtadvaita, because I went through the entire internet in various ways and I could not find any diagram which explains Vishishtadvaita well. So I created this diagram. So if you see here, there is a soul. And then you have, so just take a look at this picture. So you have the soul and then you have the body, right? So the soul here is called as Paravasudeva. And then you have the various Jiva souls and matter here in this picture. They all form the body of this Brahman. So this entire thing is called Brahman. All that exists is called Brahman. If you compare that, like you have your soul and then you have the body. Right? In the same way, the Brahman has a soul and it has a body. The soul of the Brahman is Ishvara or Paravasudeva with his primary attributes. And the body of the Brahman is various Jiva souls and matter. This is the the metaphysics of Vishishtadvaita. That the Ishvara, the Lord, okay, so this is, together they form one pan-organistic whole. So the primary act, this one, is this picture okay, Prabhu? This picture is okay. And then this is my last slide of creation and dissolution in Vishishtadvaita. So you have Brahman, which is the undifferentiated. So this diagram, again, I created to explain creation and dissolution. So you have an undifferentiated, this is an undifferentiated state. You still have what is constant here is this Paravasudeva with primary attributes, and all the secondary attributes are undifferentiated. And what is creation? all these secondary attributes, they will differentiate, and then you have the formation of the world and so on. So that is in the created state. And then they go back and forth. So, but this secondary attributes, whether they are in the undifferentiated state or in the differentiated state, they are still the same, except that they are in the undifferentiated state in one sense and differentiated state in the other sense. And therefore, this, even though they're getting transformed, the initial position is also the same, the final position is also the same. So this is called as Brahma Prakara Parinama Vada. That means there is a transformation of the secondary modes of Brahman. The secondary modes of Brahman are getting transformed. That is the philosophy of Vasishtha Advaita. So thus ends this class. Thank you again, and thank you for this opportunity. Vancha kalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha paritanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Thank you.
Why called Parvasudeva? Why didn't he say Narayana?
That is the word that is used. It is interchangeably used, Prabhu, but the verse in the Sri Bhashya when he used for that is Parvasudeva.
Till this day, I don't know. It's Parvasudeva. Always Narayana. Narayana Yadme Vasudeva Yadime Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat, something like this. So there is Vasudeva, there is Narayana, and there is Vishnu. So they use the word. They interchangeably use that.
They interchangeably use it, but Ramanujacharya used the word as Parvasudeva in his Sri Bhashya.
I mean, this is what you put in the first slide.
Yeah, this is the soul-body relationship. Correct.
Jiva, soul plus matter.
Matter. Jiva, soul and matter form the body of Brahman. The Ishvara forms the soul of the Brahman.
But why did you make all this hard kind of thing, Prabhu?
That's like the soul is at the, let's say the soul is at the heart of that Brahman. And that soul is nothing but the Paravasudeva with his primary attributes. And then, and the body, I mean, it's not I just put the human body here just for like, he's not saying it looks like a human body, but it's like the body of the Brahman is composed of the Jiva and matter, just like pearls are strung on the neck of the Lord.
Wow.
But we can also find the analogy of this in Chaitanya Charitamrita, just like there here, Krishnadas Kaviraj says that how the Kshirodakasai Vishnu is the soul of this, is the Paramatma, and then you have Garbhodakasai Vishnu as the soul of the universe, of this universe, and Karanodakasai Vishnu as the soul of all universes. It is very similar to that in that sense. So in a sense, you can see that it is all very similar in one sense or the other, except that Achintya Bheda Bheda talks about our philosophy and the theology is way more detailed.
Why did they have problem accepting our philosophy? It's because their Siddhanta is actually made.
It is very similar though. Yeah, the bridge. Like if you see that particular thing here, we are accepting Achintya Bheda Bheda takes the Abheda 100% true and the Bheda 100% true. And the Ghataka is also there. But then we are not interpreting anything. That's the main thing. We're accepting all the Bheda Shruti as it is, the Abheda Shruti as it is. And when it comes to reconciliation, we don't need a bridge. Because the bridge is Achintya. Achintya, Bheda, Abheda. That is inconceivable. We don't need to go interpret a verse. When Vedas say Sarvam Kalavedam Brahma, we say, okay, everything is Brahman, that is true. And then Vedas also say something else, Nityo Nityanam, Chetanas Chetananam, or if the like a Samhita, when it says Brahma Samhita says Ishvara Parama, then it says Govindam Adi Purusham, that also is true. Everything is true as it is. And how both are true as it is, that is irreconcilable. We don't need that but the Ghataka Shruti also we've taken because that is some kind of, there is some relationship between the living soul. Within the Bheda, there is a relationship between the living soul and the God. Within the Abheda Shruti also there is a relationship. But it is not like we don't have to stress any of these things by itself to interpret the other branches. So
why we don't have to stress, Prabhuji?
Because we are taking everything as it is. Like, for example, Prabhu, let's say that this Sarvam Kalave, let's take Achintya Bhedaveda, for example. If you take Sarvam Kalavedam Brahma, all there exists is Brahman, okay? Which we accept it as it is because all there exists is spirit. All there exists is just spirit. So this statement is absolutely true. But the other statement here that there is many eternal living beings and there is one supreme eternal being, that also is absolutely true. Nityo Nityanam Cheda. So that also is absolutely true. So both, how is both simultaneously true? Because based on the realization of the seer, Brahmeti, Paramatmiti, Bhagavaniti, Shabda, it is the same substance, but can be viewed by as Brahman. But the same Brahman is viewed as a Bhagavan, as a personality of Godhead by the devotee. So from an Abheda perspective, you have, there is a certain vision. From a Bheda perspective, there is a certain vision, but both exist simultaneously. But there is an order there. The order is, but in terms of importance, everything is there. Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, everything is there. So that means like Bheda and Abheda, everything simultaneously exists to the fullest extent. To the fullest extent, there is Abheda. To the fullest extent, there is Bheda. And both, and that becomes actually a little difficult part for people to understand. When people are engrossed in the Bheda, it is very hard for them to understand Abheda. To understand that all there exists is spirit. It's very hard to understand. And somebody in the Abheda school, they just cannot take the Bheda at all. But the danger is more in the other side. Because here, in the Abheda part, the danger is more because there you're denying the existence of the personality of God. The danger is more there. Because then you have really no scope. You have no scope. With the Bheda part, the God will give you the knowledge of Brahman. But here you don't even have any, you don't even accept anybody. Even if the God is giving, but here you don't even accept anybody. The danger is more in the pure Abheda part. The danger is less here. If you just say pure Bheda as Madhvacharya did, pure Bheda, it is okay because at least he has accepted Krishna's form as the absolute truth. That's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says.
So Abheda means like oneness. There is no difference.
No difference between anything.
Yeah.
There is no difference between this wood and this wood. There is no difference anywhere.
You and I both are same. We are God. You are God.
This and all doesn't exist. That's a different thing. This and all is not existing. You and I at least exist.
Oh.
This and all is not existing. If it is existing, we are an illusion.
Hare Krishna, Jayanand Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you. Next week, next Sunday, I'm out of town, Prabhu. So next Sunday, somebody else is doing. But then the Sunday after that, I'm doing Dvaita. Madhvacharya's Dvaita.
What is it? It's called just Dvaita?
Tattvavada.
Oh.
They call it Tattvavada. I put Tattvavada / Dvaita just to say that there is everything Bheda. Dvaita. Kevala Dvaita Shankaracharya's. And then you have Shuddha Dvaita, which is Vallabhacharya, Vishnu Swami's Shuddha Dvaita, pure non-dualism. I have an image for that also. Shuddha Dvaita. And then you have Dvaita Dvaita, Nimbarkacharya's. That is just Beda Beda. The only thing is Achintya is not there. He thinks everything is logical. It is very logical that Bheda and Abheda are existing simultaneously. But Jiva Goswami says it is not so. Bheda and Abheda together cannot be logical. It has to be Achintya. Because that is why a lot of them discounted Bheda Bheda. Like Madhvacharya denies Bheda Bheda as proper. Ramanujacharya denies it. Shankaracharya denies it. Because they all think that Bheda Bheda only in the logical point. They all left that word achintya. The achintya is what makes Bheda Bheda makes it a proper philosophy.
Again, Guruji, what is the meaning of Achinta if you say?
Achintya means inconceivable. There is how is it that we are entirely different from Krishna in all, absolutely different from Krishna and absolutely same as Krishna? And that is inconceivable.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
And quantity.
That is a simplified way of saying that. But if you take all there exists is spirit, Brahman, Sarvam Kalavidam Brahma, all there exists is spirit, there we are absolutely identical with Krishna. But at the same time, Krishna is existing in his form as personality of Godhead, as Bhagavan in Goloka, as a source from which all is emanating. There is absolute difference between matter, Jiva, soul, and Krishna. And how both together exist simultaneously is inconceivable.
So that logic is given here. Like they interpret, but we don't.
But there is there are problems here. I'll tell you that later. In the last seminar, I'll tell you that. Because I don't want to say anything today.
Yeah, okay, no problem.
In the last seminar, I've created 7 slides of tables. One column for Shankaracharya's Advaita, Keval Advaita, one column for Ramanujacharya's Vishishta Advaita. Yes, Prabhu, thank you, we'll dent. So, and then we'll stop here, Prabhu. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, sir, yeah.
Prabhu, can